Now, this is not on the request list. It was at some point, and then it got removed. Not sure why, but we're going to go ahead and check it out regardless because it just goes in the line. Spartan 2, 3, now we're at 4, and we're going to be doing 5 soon. Joining me today, I have the Council of Elder, Archo.
Hello.
Daemon.
Hello.
And then we have some bum that we found at the liquor store. Eagle.
Well, I prefer soccer, thank you very much, but hey, everyone.
Okay, so we're going to be watching this. Last time he put this warning up, it did not have any kind of like real heavy anything in there, so I will save my judgment. I will say, well, not save my judgment, whatever that means. I'll wait until the end to see if I'm going to age restrict this or not, but we'll find out. We learned a lot last time. We're going to learn a lot this time. You guys ready?
Well,
Be prepared to prepare to find out why Spartan-IV can actually work in a hostile environment.
Ooh. Archo.
Hello.
I'm going to press the button now.
Hello.
Oh.
Warning. This video contains in-depth and graphic footage, images and exploration of various highly invasive surgical procedures. Viewer discretion is advised.
He spelled discretion wrong.
Spartan-IVs are the newest class of Spartans, and
Minor
contrary to
spelling
the earlier
mistake.
classes, they are forged
That means I can no longer take anything in this video seriously.
into Spartans as fully grown, consenting adults. This results in certain restrictions and bottlenecks caused by the already fully matured physiology of completely normal human beings. Spartan 2s and 3s were kidnapped as children to enable extensive training, indoctrination, and the full physiological acceptance of augmentations, with the 2s being the absolute pinnacle of humanity and required very specific and very rare genetic markers. The Spartan-IVs chose to enlist as normal soldiers in the UNSC before they were approved for service as Spartan-IVs.
Okay.
The training was more fleshed out and established, with innovations and focused training gleaned from the earlier classes. Their augmentation sets, while not quite as raw and powerful as the earlier classes, were more refined, honed, and covered a larger range of Spartan physiology, leading these augmentations to be overall much broader of an effect on the body than the earlier classes, at the
Okay.
cost of their power. However, the augmentation sets of the Spartan-IVs went to lengths utterly unseen in all previous augmentation profiles due to the Spartan-IV program's original conceptualized goals. While not being as powerful, the amount of physiological systems that experience heavy augmentations led the Spartan-IVs to be their own unique brand of lethal.
So, just based off his summary right then and there, the Spartan-IVs would be considered mass-produced.
Yeah, if you're gonna, as has been said before with the other Spartans, this is more true with the Spartan-IVs. These are these are closer you get to Proto-Astartes.
Oh, okay, that works for me. That really works for me. It kind of makes sense to the evolution of this that the power would go down the more the availability goes up.
Quality over quantity.
Quantity has a quality all of its own.
Yeah, strength in numbers.
Especially when quantity is supplemented with more advanced technology.
No. Damn it.
You have no power here.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation00 and the most detailed video series. The various classes of Spartans all received augmentations to forge them into the super soldiers they are so widely known to be. The Orion candidates, the Spartan 2s, 3s and 4s have augmentations which are wholly unique to each class and
That
the
was
particular
smooth.
operational requirements of their generation. The 4s received augmentations, alterations and enhancements that
And that
forged
was
them
blunt.
into the emergent special forces of the modern UNSC.
Ms. Tucker
While
from
other
Red vs.
divisions of
Blue
special
once said,
forces
"What's
still
not to
exist,
understand
such as
about swish,
ODSTs,
swish,
it is
stab?
widely accepted
It's a
that
fucking
large
sword, dude."
swathes of
What?
Like, to quote Tucker from Red vs. Blue, like, what's not to understand about swish, swish, stab? The fucking
Yes.
sword, dude.
high caliber individuals from various Special Forces branches moved over to the Spartan-IV branch in order to achieve their full potential. This led to somewhat of an overshadowing of other Special Forces branches, not that anyone would ever truly replace the ODSTs.
Another note.
Speaking of which, some of you...
What's up?
Another note besides Special Forces branches, also if just you are particularly promising recruit or a useful civilian contractor.
Really?
You had to be very, very useful, but still.
Well, as long as you don't get greased, you're fine.
May already be aware, but for those of you who don't, below this video you'll notice I've got some ODST themed t-shirts available
Yay.
via my Teespring merchandise store. If you like what you see and fancy showing your love for the ODSTs, pick one up with the promo code EPIC00 for 10% off. A little gift from me to you. So anyway, in extension to our previous, most detailed breakdown
What?
Jazz music not included.
on the Spartan-II and Spartan-III augmentations, today we will look at the augmentations of the Spartan-IVs.
Yes.
Once again, this video contains in-depth and graphical footage, images and exploration of various highly invasive surgical procedures. Viewer discretion is advised. With that said,
Let's go.
let's do this.
Pretty much the only system not enhanced in some way would be the reproductive
Project
system.
Orchid is the codename given for the
Yes, part of your Spartan-IV augmentation is a weaponized cock.
Imagine what type of children
For
you can create
Spartan-Vs.
with that.
Ah!
Spartan-IV augmentation program. The program was initially conceived as a way to create Spartans without armor. However, these earlier tests were ultimately unsuccessful.
Sounds like
This led to a refinement in the augmentation sets, and they now feature a number of new procedures not used in the preceding programs. These are to offset the lower power of the augmentation sets and thus the resulting Spartan. It is also because of this that the Gen 2 platform is over-engineered to close the performance gap between the S4s and the earlier Spartans' superior augmentations and their armor.
They make
entire
Rock
process-
look like an anime character in this trailer.
what?
They're making Rock look like an anime character in this trailer.
Kinda.
Leans much heavier on surgical and cybernetic implantations than Project Aster and Project Chrysanthemum. Due to the subjects' bodies no longer being in development stages as well as their lack of genetic requirements, the process must be carefully custom tailored for each individual, thus adding additional layers of complexity to the process of augmentation and the ongoing maintenance thereafter. Where the Spartan 2s and 3s would acclimate to their augmentations and only get more powerful over time, with their armor giving iterative improvements to performance, they were afforded a large degree of autonomy. The Spartan 4s, however, require constant maintenance from a plethora of support teams and processes to help keep their augmentations dialed in. As such, the Spartan 4 augmentations necessitates an exponential expansion of supporting roles, resources, and facilities, which ultimately paved the way between the earlier, smaller scale covert Spartan programs to the very large and very public Spartan division, with an entire deck of humanity's flagship, the UNSC Infinity, dedicated exclusively to Spartan operations. Even with all of these additional requirements and needs, the list of augmentations and enhancements are extremely comprehensive and very impressive by any standards, and enable a normal human being to become superhuman with minimal risk to mortality.
Lovely.
If only
The
Space
subject
Marine
is given a
creation was that
specialized
easy.
neural implant taking the form of the Torpit data cluster. This is functionally identical to the Spartan neural interface given to the earlier classes. The neural ace implant data port is located at the base of the skull and extends deep into the midbrain via a connected data cluster that interfaces with numerous sections of the cerebral cortex.
What's the matter?
It's nothing. Just go ahead.
Look at
You
the
were warned,
facility.
Eagle.
Yes.
Look at the brain stuff, Eagle. Look at the brain guts.
It's so veiny.
It's
Tasty.
chewy.
Yes. Hey, Eagle, you know monkey brain is considered a delicacy in some countries?
In dual
Yes, I
processing of the
watched
brain
Indiana Jones
and
and the
neural
Temple of
control
Doom.
systems. This enables the Spartan the ability to interface with UNSC data systems and any friendly AIs hosted in their Mjolnir armor, or via the armor's wideband communications arrays.
Lovely.
It also grants administrative capabilities over the armor, enabling contact to team members, command protocols,
Your
and
paperwork will always
activate
be
the
filled
armor
out.
and weapons with a thought. This highly sophisticated brain-computer interface, or
Actually, if you pause real
BCI,
quick,
Sure.
it's not even a complete joke, because in Halo 4, they added in specialist packages and such, which actually provide you bonuses in multiplayer. And some of them pretty much were just your paperwork was filled out faster, so you could requisition shit faster.
can likely also
Lovely.
be connected and linked to various peripheral devices not otherwise directly associated with the Spartan operations
Monkey.
and Mjolnir. In theory, the smart glasses or goggles used by Marines could be used simply by thought control by a Spartan-IV. The integrated headset and communications device used by Dare.
I still cannot get over the fact that she, like seriously, what the hell happened to her face? It's always disturbed me.
PEDs.
What?
PEDs.
I don't want to know.
Could also be such a device. There may be entire ranges of products designed with neural interface in mind, utilizing augmented and virtual reality heads-up displays, 26th century equivalents of smart devices, data pads, tac pads, and much more that we simply haven't seen in Halo yet, that would add more knowledge on exactly what these kinds of BCIs are capable of outside of
Your
Mjolnir.
smart fridge finally knows what you want to eat.
Muscles are subjected to an induced muscular growth and injected with a material that allows them to work harder without breaking the Spartan skeleton. These injections contain a protein complex and is injected intramuscularly. It targets the muscle's intracellular molecular machinery to help increase muscle strength and endurance.
Okay.
It is assumed this is achieved by utilizing a localized mutagenic compound which alters the muscle cells on a fundamental level. It is
boss.
distinctly possible the
Yes.
I believe they're pumping them full of gamer fuel. Not sponsored, by the way.
Yes.
myostatin inhibitor follistatin is used in some degree,
He gets
or a
great.
newer, more advanced descendant of this chemical, leading to the muscles being able to grow
Oh,
bigger
look, he's got
and stronger,
Gatorade.
faster. Subjects also undergo muscle grafting, which involves reshaping the muscles to be more mechanically efficient, alongside molecular techniques which joins and bonds smaller myofibril structures into larger singular cohesive muscle structures with proportionally higher output force. The augmentations also give them
Bruh.
Where's the free pizza?
Every time it's like, man, you want to run? I want to run. That's the look I get that's the expression, what this guy's expression is telling me every single time I see this clip. It's like, if you start running, I'm running with you.
enhanced muscle memory, which makes observing and learning
I
combat
just wanted my
techniques
free
much
pizza.
easier. This particular aspect of the augmentation should more accurately be categorized as part of the augmentation sets taking place within the brain, as it is generally widely accepted that muscle memory actually takes place within the cerebellum and the motor centers of the brain through strengthened connections between neurons as a result
he just
of
give-
repetitive
okay.
actions firing a sequence of neurons consistently over time. The mechanism
Me
by
take
which
rock,
increased
smash!
muscle memory through observation and learning is achieved is utterly unknown.
Skeletal reinforcements.
I
Drink
take
your milk,
particular
kids.
interest in the augmentation for the
One of the most
Spartan-IV's
annoying
bones,
ones
as
to
there
me.
It's the blue milk from Star Wars.
are some inconsistencies based on the materials implied. The Spartan's bones are infused with skeletal fullerene lattices, regarded as tougher than steel, which makes them virtually unbreakable and allows survival in harder impacts. A fullerene is an allotrope of carbon whose molecule consists of carbon atoms connected by single and double bonds so as to form a tube-like structure.
Okay.
Their unique molecular structure results in extraordinary macroscopic properties, including high tensile strength, high electrical conductivity, high ductility, high heat conductivity, and relative chemical inactivity. This is useful
them with
within
a
the body,
taser.
as generally speaking, carbon is one of the most reactive elements, and
That would happen if you hit anybody with a taser, but yeah, I get it.
catalyzes within the body, creating many undesirable effects. However,
Lovely.
although they are considered to be relatively inactive, that doesn't mean that it is entirely inactive. and the process of making it inactive required bending, which produces angle strain. There are 2 emerging fields in fullerenes at the moment which could see sufficient advancement to more adequately fit the profile and characteristics of the skeletal reinforcement seen in the Spartan-IVs.
Okay.
The first is metallofullerene-based inoculates, which involves encapsulating atoms of metal such as steel or titanium within a lattice of carbon fullerenes. The metal atom isn't bonded to the carbon, but rather simply caged in by them.
Lovely.
These tend to exhibit higher mechanical properties than the carbon fullerenes on their own. Further to this, fullerene polymerization is where the fullerene is subjected to high pressure and temperature, which causes the buckyball assembly of the fullerenes to collapse, resulting in ultra-hard fullerite, which is basically a material made of interconnected diamond nanorods or hyperdiamond. This material was first discovered in the 1990s, and it is distinctly possible that they could exceed 10 on the Mohs scale of mineral hardness. However, it is difficult to tell because in order to test a material's hardness, the testing tool needs to be made of a harder material than the one you are testing. Since a diamond tip tool is used with a Mohs hardness of 10, when it was tested, both the sample material and the tool cracked, indicating the possibility of greater hardness than the diamond-tipped tool.
Seems legit.
So given the
Diamond is
advancement in
unbreakable.
technology in the 26th century and the suggested mechanical properties of the Spartan-IV's bones, I would fathom a guess that the fullerene lattice augmentation is a combination of the properties I have just covered, making it an ultra-hard metallofullerene lattice grafted onto the bone's surface, whereby titanium atoms are encapsulated by the carbon fullerene, which is then wrapped around the titanium atoms in order to form carbon nanotubes, which are then polymerized under intense heat and pressure, forming the filament into a nanodiamond filament encapsulating titanium atoms. And sheets of this material are then effectively wrapped around the bones of the Spartan with a molecular treatment involving boron to facilitate surface bonding to the bones.
Okay. My nose is bleeding. Ugh. That was a lot.
Yeah,
What?
that was quite a lot to take in.
Yeah.
This would grant the properties we observe the Spartan-IVs being capable of, and this is based on my own understanding of material science. However, these fields, at least canonically, were likely not considered, and in some cases they weren't even publicized until 2016, with Halo 4 and the emergence of the Spartan-IVs predating this by 4 years. So this is my suggestion as to what material and properties actually fit the suggested performance of the augmentations. However, it is likely that canonically their bones are reinforced with carbon fullerenes, granting much tougher bones, even if the mechanical properties of these fullerenes don't fully cover the required parameters. I get it, games developers are not material scientists and shouldn't be expected to know this information.
Right.
But wrapping the bones in what is effectively a carbon nanotube would grant the bones phenomenal tensile strength, which is the stress a material can withstand being stretched or pulled. However, bones don't tend to be broken this way.
No.
And for a Spartan's bones, you'd want better shear strength and compressive strength, thereby facilitating the increased resistance of breaking through either sideways shear force or a compressive impact force. My aforementioned suggestions would grant this. So take this as you wish. Canonically, they're carbon fullerenes, reinforced bones, but practically my suggestion technically works better at meeting the requirements. The joints are also reinforced and replaced while the bones are lengthened, making the subject several centimeters taller than they originally were,
Okay.
and the subject's ligaments are reconstructed. There is a surgery that currently exists called height augmentation or limb lengthening surgery.
Or the solution for Napoleon complex.
I mean, you know, if you're honestly in a position where you genuinely think that adding 2 inches to your height would fix all your problems, then you probably it's
see-
probably not true.
Now,
Yeah.
you see, this procedure is what you need to do in order to get with a girl who says that she only dates guys who are 6 feet or taller.
No.
This is achieved by surgically breaking the bones and moving the break apart, then allowing the body to begin healing across the gap. Before it totally heals, the gap is increased again, causing the body to begin healing across the newly created gap. This is repeated up to a total distance of 3 inches. This is a very long and painful process, but with sufficient advancement in medical technology in the 26th century, the increase in height up to Spartan-IV levels is more than achievable through similar processes.
Okay.
There's another fun part with that.
Wait, I got into the voice. Neurological enhancement. Okay, go ahead.
The other fun part with that is they did put the graft on the outside of the bone to strengthen it and everything, but they also increased the length. So even if it's technically stronger, it also just doesn't have the same bore or width as a proportionate bone.
Right.
So you're stronger than you should be, yes. Are you as strong as you could have been?
Mm-hmm. Let us check out the neurological enhancements.
The nervous system is supermyelinated to increase the production of myelin sheaths and therefore the subject's reaction time. Myelin is an insulative material that surrounds nerves and allows the signals to travel faster with minimal signal loss. Supermyelination, then, is the process of adding additional myelin sheaths onto the nervous system, making neural impulses move much faster across the body. Contrary to the opinions of some, this does not mean that the entire nervous system is covered in myelin. Myelin does not form a single long sheath over the entire length of the axon. Rather, each myelin sheath insulates the axon over a single long section, and in general, each axon comprises of multiple long myelinated sections separated from each other by short myelin sheath gaps called nodes of Ranvier. With no myelin sheath, the action potential travels across the axon at a constant rate. However, with myelin sheaths, the action potential jumps down the axon, being much faster than the former. The gaps between them are necessary for ion exchange, so that the action potential is recharged with fresh ions, so the signal continues to travel. If the supermyelination covered these gaps over too, there would be no opportunity for ion exchange, and thus the impulse would fizzle out somewhere along the axon. The nervous system is subject to various element treatments, including an increase in cyclic adenosine monophosphate responses, or CAMP, and the rebuilding of neuroendocrine cells. CAMP has many uses within the body, but specifically related to the nervous system, it can regulate cyclic nucleotide-gated ion channels. These CNG channels have important functions in signal transductance. They are directly activated by cyclic nucleotides, which are regulated by CAMP, and approximately 4 cyclic nucleotides are needed to activate each channel. CNG channels are non-selective and allow many alkaline ions to flow into or out of the cell, expressing CNG channels on its membrane. This flow of ions results in depolarization, which is a change within a cell during which the cell undergoes a shift in electric charge distribution, resulting in less negative charge inside the cell. Depolarization is essential to the function of many cells, communication between cells, and the overall physiology of an organism. Alteration of this within the central nervous system then facilitates increased viability of communication across and between neuron cells.
Yay.
The rebuilding of the neuroendocrine cells is likely to facilitate a later augmentation, as when these cells receive a neural input, they release hormones into the blood. They are basically the integration point between the nervous system and the endocrine system. Alteration of this likely paves the way for the later end-cap hormone regulation therapy.
Cybernetic organ implants.
Aside from the brain, virtually all other organs in the body are either modified in some manner or replaced. Several organs are biofabricated, including the lungs.
Lovely.
The lungs implanted into the Spartans are biofabricated and lined with a Stonewall pulmonary surfactant, a polymer that enhances oxygen intake and allows the subject to process airborne toxins or foreign gas mixtures. The term biofabricated suggests that the lungs themselves are made of living tissue. However, the polymer lining suggests the bronchioles and alveoli of the lungs is borderline cybernetic. The polymer would likely be a hydrocarbon-based polymer capable of absorbing proportionally high volumes of oxygen. This is interesting, as not only would the oxygen uptake of the lungs be much more efficient, given that our lungs only absorb around 4 to 5% of the oxygen we breathe in, Spartan lungs could, in theory, absorb much more than this. However, it is also interesting because it is on record that a Spartan-IV can survive and consciously operate in a vacuum for up to 5 minutes, whereby a normal human will lose consciousness in around 15 seconds. This to me suggests that, as well as alterations to the circulatory system, This polymer holds excess oxygen as a kind of rebreather and gradually outgasses this oxygen both into space but also into the blood of the Spartan, should they...
I always find it funny that oxygen is eventually like how inefficient we are at actually processing half the stuff that comes into our bodies. It's ridiculous. It's like, just hearing that just reminds me of how little we get out of food that we eat. It's insane.
If it's close enough for government work, it's close enough for biology.
Yes.
After all, most of our atmosphere is like pretty much like 70% nitrogen, and yeah, like 100% oxygen is toxic to a person.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, if you want to try to accuse evolution of negligence, well, that's you're going to be waiting on the court system for a decade.
The platypus stares at you angrily.
God
They
made a
find themselves
fucky
in
wucky.
space
The panda can't even panda.
without a helmet.
Yes,
Full
yes, he did,
details
Eagle.
on
Here,
the
here.
other organ fabrications is sparse. The pancreas is replaced by an apparently unnamed vat-grown organ,
Whoa.
Nothing.
likely simply a
Losing
more
my
advanced
ire.
artificial form of the pancreas. Given the pancreas's normal function is the production of enzymes and hormones that help with blood sugar regulation, and a Spartan-IV's digestion and metabolism is heavily augmented, this replacement likely helps the body deal with the new function and capabilities of both.
Yay.
The Spartan also undergo treatments to prevent organ rejection, which is a curious circumstance given that it is clear in the 26th century that organs can be flash-grown from the person's own DNA,
Lovely.
meaning that it is an exact match to the person's existing biology, circumnavigating the issue of organ rejection. But
Right.
perhaps, due to the volume of Spartan-IV candidates, the need to produce these organs in higher quantities negated the individually tailored organs, even if this is a departure from the entirety of the rest of the program.
Eye augmentation.
Corneal implants are provided, improving the subject's eyesight and night vision. The surgeon would cut a small incision vector into the edge of the cornea, where small tools would then be able to access behind the cornea. Here, a dual-layer nanomaterial, a detector and an imager, is implanted behind the corneas. The first outermost layer detects a much larger proportion of the electromagnetic spectrum than the visible light the human eye can usually detect, and sends that input to the imager. The imager is similar to a screen, except it is transparent, extremely thin, and converts the input from the detector into visible light, and emits in a coherent beam into the eye. The consequence of this is that infrared and ultraviolet light is rendered visible to the user, while visible spectrum light is enhanced in its saturation and contrast, rendering the Spartan able to see in near perpetual darkness and see in enhanced color vision. On top
Nice.
of this, the organic lens within the eye is removed. Time would also be taken to clear the vitreous of fluid inside the eye, of any debris or floaters, and then an engineered artificial lens would be implanted and affixed to the muscles behind the iris. This lens is near optically perfect. It focuses light approximately 4 times better than the organic lens of the eye, meaning that a Spartan, on average, would have vision of 80-20 and be able to read text from 80 feet away that a normal person can only read from 20 feet away. Once implanted, the incision self-seals and the eyes heal themselves.
Yay. Circulatory augmentation.
Subjects undergo numerous circulatory improvements. The heart is implanted with a synthetic polythread weave, which significantly increases the capacity to pump blood. An electroactive polymer weave is implanted into the muscles of the heart. Electroactive polymers...
That does not look like a heart. That looks like a lunchbox with an attitude.
or EAPs are materials which deform in shape when an
What?
electrical
Don't worry about me. I'm an idiot.
field
It
is
looks
applied
like
to them.
it looks like the Eye of Sauron forgot to take his morning coffee.
What?
What?
I'm
Huh?
just talking about that previous image.
What have you done?
The EAPs are fully biocompatible, meaning they can be used within the body with no adverse effects at all, and they are particularly sensitive to the electrochemical potentials created by the sinoatrial node to regulate the heartbeat. As the sinoatrial node creates the impulse which travels across the heart and causes the muscle to contract, so the implanted EAPs also contract, giving the heart an additional contraction force, thereby alleviating some of the mechanical strain on the heart to supply blood to the body. There is also a suggestion of circulatory shunts. These are likely passive cybernetic implants within the major blood vessels of the body, basically very small inline pumps that serve to ensure the blood of the Spartan continues to flow across the body. These likely only activate when the heart is under unusual levels of strain, or if the body enters a particularly dangerous environment like the vacuum of space. Chondrocyte cells are genetically altered to allow for faster clotting. The subject's blood is modified to make the Spartans immune to most toxins. Spartans are also subjected to K5.2 hemoescutcheon, which literally translates to blood shield, likely something to do with staving off infections. They're also implanted with intellifibrin acclimation, likely aiding in healing of wounds. This is an advancement of a proposed augmentation Dr. Halsey mentioned in her journal. It was initially intended to be used on the Spartan-IIs, but was ruled out at the time because the risks associated exceeded desired parameters.
Lovely.
The augmentation in question was leukocytic coprotein complex and microfibrin spindlase, which leads to wound suppression and near-instant blood clotting of vascular injuries, affording a Spartan the ability to stem the bleeding from wounds nearly instantly and speed up the healing process thereafter, while also minimizing down on the amount of leftover fibrin clots that can narrow the blood vessels and lead to clot detachment and migration, heightening risks of stroke, heart failure, and failed circulation. This augmentation, while not initially used for the Spartan-IIs, was evidently advanced and developed to a point that it became a standard amongst the Spartan-IVs, but the only way that it would have become a standard is if it was fielded beforehand. This leads me to believe that the excerpt in Halsey's diary which discusses it was accurate in that they continued research and would revisit it at a later date. This means it's entirely possible the Spartan-IIs and maybe even the Spartan-IIIs received this augmentation at a later date.
What do you guys think? Is this a thing?
Potentially. I mean, we don't have any confirmation that 2s or 3s also ended up getting the augmentation.
Okay. Now we are
But it does make sense.
Now we are at metabolic improvements. Can they eat Chipotle?
Intestinal bacteria are altered to enable the digestive system to absorb more nutrients from food. There isn't much information on exactly what is done to achieve this. All that is known is that Spartan-IVs can consume foods otherwise extremely toxic or utterly inedible by normal humans, and still draw enough nutrients from the food to remain operationally effective.
Lovely.
An intestinal bioreactor is implanted and the subject is given a gut microbiota refresh. The microbiota refresh involves consuming a carefully crafted live culture of gut bacteria that is designed specifically to rebalance and refresh the microbiome in the gut. The bioreactor could mean a few different things, but one would assume, given how low down the bioreactor appears to be within the abdomen, I would guess this bioreactor is actually a waste bioreactor in that the system's aerators supply oxygen to the waste and biota already present within the reactor to create an activated waste in which the biological component is freely mixed with wastewater. In this process, the liquid's biochemical oxygen demand is reduced sufficiently to render the contaminated water fit for reuse and can be cycled back into the Spartan system for the sakes of hydration. All remaining
In other words, the Spartan-IVs can Bear Grizzle their way out of any situation.
Well, I mean, yes, but that's not thanks to this.
The
nutrients can
augmentation
be
does it for
absorbed
them.
into the body.
What?
The augmentation does it for them.
Yes. Lost in the forest, better drink my own piss.
And the final, now massively reduced biosolids can be ejected from the reactor to be discarded naturally. This process has numerous benefits. It provides additional nutrients and recycles wastewater, meaning the Spartan can remain operationally effective for much longer without the need for regular food or water supplies, and has the added benefit of reducing the need to use the toilet to, in theory, once a week or longer.
The shit? Or lack thereof?
Spartans are implanted with a handful of tiny, highly durable biomonitoring implants to track and monitor a plethora of different biosigns.
Archo has a thing to say.
Archo?
The prior augmentation, by the way, it was said in a joking fashion, but is still true that a Spartan-IV can eat tree bark and get by.
It does not surprise me. It does not.
Okay,
Specifically,
but-
wasn't it said they could sustain themselves by just eating a tree? Just like straight up, that is how it was phrased, or something along that.
But
Not really.
at the same
No.
time, I bet this thing, when it craps, it's horrifying.
Oh.
including but not limited to blood pressure and
All the
oxygenation
fiber.
levels, heart rate, temperature, as well as general performance monitoring sensors, one of which is installed near the 4th and 5th lumbar vertebrae, designed to aid medical teams remotely monitor the Spartan's health and performance. Spartans are also implanted with electronic locators to allow the United Nations Space Command to track each Spartan.
They chip their kids.
It's unclear exactly why this has become an independent implant in and of itself, rather than the standard IFF transponder that is implanted with the neural interface when the candidate's
Well, boss,
first
to respond
enlisted.
to that,
Yes.
of course they want to chip their kids. They don't want them committing war crimes in the Walmarts. Now, do they?
I'm sorry, their existence is because of war crimes. I doubt that, let's not be exactly too damn dumb. Yeah, gene therapy!
They're all going to need
Spartans
therapy after
undergo
this.
extensive gene therapy, which involves the lengthening of the telomeres. This is a compound structure at the end of chromosomes. It can be likened to the plastic tabs on the end of shoelaces, in that when you cut them off, the shoelace begins to fray and fall apart. Every time a cell divides, the telomerase is not copied fully. Over time, this causes shortening of the telomerase, eventually leading to the cell being either unable to reproduce itself, known as the Hayflick limit, or a corruption in the DNA strain that leads to corrupt cellular mutation, although it is worth noting that mutations that lead to cancer are decidedly rare in the 26th century, having been a trivial and easily curable disease since the 22nd century. A Spartan cells divide perfectly every single time due to the adenoviral telomerase replacement therapy. This means that a Spartan's biology attains a state known as cellular immortality. This does not mean that Spartans are immortal, as it takes significantly more genetic engineering and control of environmental factors to attain true immortality. But it does, however, mean that a Spartan's body ages at a significantly slower rate than a normal human being. Think something along the lines of Wolverine, and you're about in the right ballpark.
Okay.
Injuries that would generally cause severe inhibited function later on in life are cancelled out by the body's ability to rejuvenate its own cells. Additionally, genetic alterations are made to the Spartan to make them more tolerant to various diseases and illnesses, boosting the immune system and making it significantly harder for ailments, infections, and diseases to take hold. The aforementioned alteration to the myostatin of the muscles is also a genetic-based alteration that sees the implementation of follistatin into the Spartan's DNA. Genetic enhancements to the body's healing response is also altered, allowing a Spartan to recover from injury significantly faster than the average human.
In cap, augmentation.
The Spartan is subjected to hormone regulation therapies, and their bioprofile is archived. The hormone regulation is likely another advancement of an augmentation mentioned in Halsey's journal, which exceeded desired failure rates. There were plans to include adrenal thermal metabolase into the earlier augmentation sets, which enhances adrenal response under physiological distress, leading to significantly higher adrenaline levels, which speed up reaction time and switch off the body's natural safety parameters to avoid injury during physical exertion, allowing the subject to hit harder and faster and lift significantly heavier weights. However, it wasn't implemented at the same time as the other augmentations, but may have been improved and used at a later date. The research likely went far beyond just altering the adrenal response, and likely looks at the entire endocrine system and reworks it to keep Spartan-IVs operating nominally.
Early experimental augmentations.
A series of additional augmentations were included
Oh Christ, no, not this symbol.
You know shit's about to get fucky when you see this.
in the early prototype stages of Project Orchid, and approved by the
The
UNSC's
beloved
Navy
triangle
Committee
of
that
friendship and happiness.
Whoa.
Oni, the beloved triangle of friendship and happiness.
Yes.
Regulated other matters relating to the Spartan-IV program. This experimental phase of the augmentation program was conducted entirely by the Office of Naval Intelligence, and as such is still highly
Fucking
classified.
stupid.
These enhancements would have made Spartans without armor. Spartans so powerful they would have matched a fully armored Spartan II's capabilities while wearing no armor whatsoever. These procedures, however, proved to have a extremely high casualty rate, killing or crippling 9 of the 10 initial candidates.
Lovely.
The only survivor, Ilza Zane, was rendered mentally unstable and began suffering homicidal tendencies.
Really? Really? Good job,
They gave
Eleni.
company bath salts.
Jesus.
She proceeded.
This is a certified Oni moment.
She proceeded to go full chimp.
Good God.
She demonstrated the
Gamma company
effectiveness
with bath
of these
salt.
experimental enhancements when she was able to engage Sarah Palmer, who was wearing her full Mjolnir suit, in hand-to-hand combat without the use of any protective equipment, and survived having her face repeatedly banged into a metal bulkhead full force by Palmer, as well as being subsequently kicked out of an airlock and exposed to the vacuum of space in no protective equipment for a prolonged duration of time, which she survived no ill effects from.
Okay, what is Professor X doing there, and why does he seriously look like the Krampus had a baby with Barney Rubble and pissed on it? Just a
Smell
question.
that Zaza?
Like, seriously, why does Oni keep on doing things? At all. Every time they do something, they seem to screw it up.
I mean,
Look at the
Amazing.
comic. They can't even show how to throw a proper punch. They don't even have good melee training.
Like, seriously? I can't tell. Oh, my God.
Several years later, she was also able
Like, what is this?
to charge into a group of ODSTs and knock them to the ground.
Okay. Effects.
When reflecting on her augmentations, Sarah Palmer stated that, in her own words, the synthetic cardiac weave allowed her to outrun a horse. The enhancements performed on the lungs potentially allow Spartan-IVs to breathe methane for around an hour. Nutrition-wise, it is also said that Spartans could eat a raw tree and retain the equivalent of 6 meals worth of calories
nice
in terms
treat.
of energy.
Lovely.
Told you.
According to Buck, the ocular implants enable him to see and read fine print on release forms from across the room. The hearing of the subjects are also greatly improved thanks to their neurological enhancements. Spartan-IVs also exhibit between a 10 and 20% improvement in their general cognitive propensity scores
Okay.
when paired with deep learning methods. Due to the decision to augment adults as opposed to children, it comes with a great cost of performance. The results of the Spartan-IV's physical augmentations are not as effective or as powerful as the preceding generations of Spartan 2s and 3s. To compensate for this, the Gen 2 Mjolnir platform, worn specifically by the Spartan-IVs, is designed to multiply the wearer's strength and speed significantly more than the first generation of suits. At least in theory, this makes a Spartan 4 in Gen 2 roughly equal to that of a Gen 1 Spartan 2 in terms of strength and speed, but outside of armor, there is a considerable disadvantage on the part of the Spartan 4.
Okay.
Buck also compared the Spartan 4s to demigods, while respectively likening the Spartan 2s and 3s to the titans and gods of Greek mythology. Spartan 4 augmentations lack the stability of earlier generations, meaning that they need constant tune-ups to ensure nothing goes wrong with their bodies.
I would fucking hate that.
While falling from the sky over Cassidy 3, Buck highly doubted he'd survive even with his augmentations and armor, despite John 117 having survived a very similar fall years earlier. Buck's reasoning was that while the Spartan 2s had been literally made to be invincible, the UNSC had figured out how to cut some costs by the time it got round to him and his own augmentations,
Lovely.
and it didn't make him nearly as invincible. When coming from Buck, you can count on him not mincing his words. Spartan 4s must also follow a strict set of guidelines to maintain their physical fitness and health, and these include regular medical examinations, including physiological scans, reviews and treatments before and after each mission. This is quite a departure from the preceding generations, given the Spartan-IIs and IIIs were expected to operate behind enemy lines for extended periods of time. Indeed, even now, Spartan Grey Team are still behind enemy lines some years after last being in contact with the UNSC.
Huh.
Spartan-IVs, it seems, cannot afford that degree of autonomy. Spartan-IVs are, however, expected to perform at optimum capacity with a minimum of 2.5 hours sleep per 48-hour cycle. Official Spartan meals are also specifically prepared to meet the caloric, nutritional and medicinal needs of each individual Spartan.
What?
These personal needs are measured based on activity data recorded by the Spartan's individual physiometer.
This almost seems like a step back.
In some ways it is, yes.
Ancillary
I feel
medications
justified
may
with
be
what I told you in the Spartan-III video.
Hmm.
If
provided
it's a
to-
very hostile environment and it's a short-term operation, send the Force. Anything longer, fuck that.
Yeah.
ensure the Spartan's well-being and reduce the risk of potential implant rejections. The effect the augmentations have on lifespan is unknown, although it is theorized that most Spartans can surpass the average human lifespan, and it is expected their peak fighting days will exceed a century.
Lovely.
Ooh, conclusion.
Yes.
The Spartan-IV augmentations are much more substantial than previous generations, with many more systems and biological processes of the body being augmented to meet the needs of a Spartan-IV. Many of these were likely fielded in some degree on the earlier Spartans, and it is entirely possible that some of their more modern and sophisticated augmentations have been retroactively applied to the Spartan-IIs and IIIs, who still see frequent active duty. I wouldn't be surprised if Chief's full augmentation set includes many of the augmentations seen in the Spartan-IVs. The unity of a Spartan-IV and the Gen 2 platform make a super soldier who can go toe-to-toe with the worst the galaxy can regurgitate, and stand their ground against the more powerful Spartan-IIs, should the need arise. That being said, while the Spartan-IVs have many more newer augmentations, the fewer augmentations of the 2s and 3s are of such a high quality and raw power that on a basic physiological level, a Spartan-IV would be greatly outmatched by a Spartan-II or 3. Nonetheless, Spartan-IVs are an exceptional example of augmentation technology being put to good use, and paving the way for wide-scale, non-military human augmentation. Many of the gene therapies, artificial organ implants and cybernetic enhancements used in the Spartan-IV program's augmentations are irreversible. Very few within the UNSC and the United Earth government have forecasted the impact these men and women will have when they leave military service and re-enter civilian life as augmented humans. But one thing is for certain: the Spartans are our future, our destiny as a species, and they are inexorably marching us towards the reality that most of humanity will eventually be augmented. But even when that day comes, when all of humanity are augmented, let's still hope that there are those among us who are just that little bit better than the rest of us, that little bit more powerful. Let's always hope that there are a vanguard, in the form of Spartans, ready to fight on the front line for humanity's survival against any foe the galaxy poses to us. Because huge swathes of humanity can be augmented, but we will always need the Spartans.
Okay, I like that.
Thanks for watching. Stick your comments down below.
I like the way he ended that.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
I don't.
Why not?
The idea of all of humanity getting Spartan level augmentations, it just sounds like power creep.
Well, the thing I take away from it is, eventually, we're all going to wind up getting some form of modification. Like, we're all going to wind up getting some form of modification. Now, from what I'm understanding from for the reason this seems like such a big step back to me is because this required a lot of invasive surgery where the 3s did not. And the 3s were, the rejection rate and the gene profiles were lessened from the 2s, but they were still there. This was easily applicable to just about anybody, But if they kept on refining the technology, now there would not be, the end product that will be able to be used on everyone would not be something that would be any way comparable to even a Spartan-IV, but it would still be a massive improvement over the baseline human. You know what I mean?
You know what? Fair enough.
I mean, it would be something if they combined a lot of the non-invasive procedures of the threes, and collapse them down to where you're not sitting there, going through like intense gene therapy or anything like that. But if you can go into a clinic and sit down in a chair and have your ability to your musculature modified within an afternoon, which some of the threes seem to be, they would go in for these sessions and just have these few hour-long sessions done, and then they just, you go home, eat a lot of steak, and then after 3 weeks it's done, it's finished. That's a really, really, really powerful thing in the long run for anybody that's considering augmentation full-time. You know what I mean? And not even including the mental, as well as the cellular, and quality of life things that they did. Just saying. A lot of the gene therapy things that I'm seeing in these videos, a lot of the gene therapy things can be easily modified for a mass civilian population. Because imagine, like, right now, your time on target to be able to perfect any kind of skill, it used to be, like, in the 20s and 30s, you had a maximum of 20 years to perfect your craft, flat out. Imagine what you could do if you weren't going to lose any real cognitive or physical function for 80 years. What you'd be capable of. Your level of expertise. It's a thing, bud. But then again, fucking traffic.
What?
I'm just saying, fucking traffic.
What do you mean, traffic?
Because these bastards would live so much fucking longer, and then they're traffic.
Oh, for a second there, I thought you meant like they would augment the cars or some shit.
No. But
Augment the Cars. What is this? Cars from Pixar?
the end game of this, I don't, you'd have Spartan 5s, and then I'd guess in about 20 years they'd perfect Spartan 6 to 7. I don't see a mass rollout for humanity until at least Spartan like 10. In as far as perfecting perfecting certain things, and I don't see anything, completely overpowered and insane, but I could easily see them having gene therapy to increase muscle mass and bone density by a couple of factors to make humans the strongest chimps, and increase overall, mental facilities, everything like that. I could see that happening within a few more generations of Spartans. Could see it. All right. Anybody else got anything?
Do you see why I liken the Spartan-IVs to Proto-Astartes more than the others?
Right. I definitely really, really do. The Spartan-IIs are comparable to, I don't know, the Custodians. In my
Damn,
opinion.
going that high.
Huh?
Damn, going that high, huh?
No, I mean in terms of like the level of attention.
Role and manufacture.
The level of attention needed for each one.
Okay.
The level of attention and training needed for each one. The threes would be more. I don't know. I don't even have a good comparison. But yeah, I get what you were saying. Archo, you got anything?
To be
or not to be?
That is a question.
Go ahead, bud.
Someone's getting a smack. In any case, to be absolutely clear, The Spartan-IVs, the program began, as Installation00 explained, with the idea of creating Spartans that no longer needed armor. Obviously, they tried it, but 9 of the 10 test subjects fucking kicked the bucket, and the 10th went full chimp.
Lovely.
So the aim of the Spartan-IV program thereon after became creating Spartans which perform on par with earlier models, but cost less.
Right.
And to that end, they essentially cut having to train candidates completely out of the equation by bringing in former soldiers who were already adults.
Right.
And their augmentations, as far as raw physical capability, are stated to be less intense than even the Spartan-IIIs.
Mm-hmm.
But Gen 2 Mjolnir was like a quantum leap in itself as far as, compensating for that significant gap in strength and speed.
Right.
The catch, though, being that a Spartan 2 or a Spartan 3 wearing Gen 2 Mjolnir wouldn't quite get the same oomph as... There's some debate as to why, but generally it's more or less thought that a Spartan 4 and a Spartan 2 in Gen 2 Mjolnir would more or less be on par, as seen in Halo 5. In any case.
Okay.
Gen 2 Mjolnir is... It really went above and beyond as far as modularity and, quality of life and just convenience upgrades and shit.
Okay.
If you were to compare the Spartan generations to, like, cars or something like that, Spartan 2s would be monster trucks. Spartan 3s would be, like, Ford F-250s. And the Spartan 4s would be, like, designer sports cars, I suppose.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. I get it. Daemon, you got anything else?
Not explicitly for this video. I will talk to you about some of the theories that have been discussed involving the armor and why the fuck it operates as it does.
Okay. Eagle?
Nothing real major except, kids, drink your milk and... just watch out for the triangle friendship and happiness because it does not want to be your friend.
And always, kids, watch out for Halsey. She's recruiting. Alright, guys, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Once again, all of Installation00's links are going to be in the description down below, right next to my own links for my Patreon, PayPal, everything else like that, including my Discord, so you can come in and throw rocks at me and tell me why I'm wrong about everything. Aside from all that...
It's quite fun.
Yes, it is quite fun. Anyhow, aside from all that, thank you guys for joining me, and we're going to be checking it the next time I can get everybody together. We're going to be checking out Spartan-V augmentations, and yeah, that's going to be interesting. Until next time, guys. Later.
Adios.
Say goodbye, Archo.
Bye-bye.
Say goodbye, Daemon.
Be seeing you.
Say something witty, Eagle.
I shall see you all later tonight in your walls.
God damn it, first Strider, now you. Quit stealing my shit.